All right, we're live.
All right, Tommy, thanks for joining us, man, on the first official guest of the First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. So thanks for coming.
Dude, I'm super pumped, and I'm surrounded by firefighters.
Right.
It's
Every
your
cop
dream,
dream.
right? It's every cop's dream.
So we don't really have much of a script to go by. So why don't you just tell us how did the four of us who have never really met in person, to the best of my knowledge, end up talking about real estate on a podcast?
Wow, that's I mean it's a pretty cool connection actually if I think about it now. I think I first heard because I was hooked on all the Bigger Pockets podcasts, and I heard uh, famous Mike here chatting about his real estate experience, and then I reached out on Facebook and found the First Responders for Financial Freedom group. And then I got Aaron's number and texted him and called him pretty much every day for a couple of months.
And you
And
fell off the face of the earth once you got once you got your answers. You stopped calling as much, man. I feel so used and abused.
sorry. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, man. So I think it's a wealth of information in this group, and obviously forming relationships with you guys that are extremely important, and it's kind of an awesome place to be.
So, Tommy, you came from the police department. You want to tell us a little bit about your background for your W-2?
Yeah.
Because you're a police officer up in Pennsylvania for a while before you started looking into real estate, right?
Correct. Yes, I technically still am. So, but yeah. So 15 years with the police department, and the last maybe 5, I guess, as a sergeant. I started in the 39th district in Philly, and I was there for about 6 or 7 years. Very violent, very unpredictable area, and I definitely have a lot of good memories and a lot of scary memories from those 7 years for sure. I put a transfer in to go work in South Philly, and it was quite a change of pace. There was like little old Italian women that would, ask me, like, come on in and come sit and eat dinner with us, and it was a totally different atmosphere down there. Um, so then I got promoted. I made sergeant, and I was transferred out to West Philly, where I still currently am. So that's also kind of a wild and crazy location. But
If I
so yeah,
remember correctly, you're over in the Kensington area, right?
no,
Where
no,
is it? Where
no,
are you at now?
West Philly.
Okay.
So, yep. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
So, what made you transition from being a police officer wanting to get into real estate investing? Because I know you had the place in Fishtown.
Right. So I actually bought the first property that I purchased was actually a duplex, and this was like maybe 12 years ago. And I I turned the duplex into a triplex, and I had no idea what I was doing. It just sounded like a cool idea, and there was space to do it. I knew nothing about zoning or L&I, right, or any of that stuff. And one of the neighbors called on me, and they're like, L&I showed up. They're like, you can't just build an apartment here, bro. So, but I went through the process, and before like the community the community meetings and stuff like that, and had some trips down to L&I. Had to hire an attorney and get blueprints drawn and all that stuff. And they ended up approving it, and it was a proviso in there for owner occupied triplex. So apparently I was already interested in real estate and saw the benefits of it back then. But I was like, I didn't really know where to go from there. I was kind of just like in a cool situation where I was living for free, and the other tenants were paying for my mortgage. So I think the idea of advancing from there for some reason never really sunk in, I guess. But
So,
you
by
know,
accident, you did add value and you did house hacking.
right,
That's
exactly.
awesome. That's awesome.
So fast forward, and like I met my ex-wife, and that became my life for about 7 years, with like I spent every dollar I had on fighting to have my daughter in my life. I stopped counting. It was well over like 60 grand in attorney fees. So that's probably what halted my real my real estate career right there. But so that kind of simmered down, and then I met my current wife, and we have 3 kids together, and I ended up, we were like debating on whether or not to put the Fishtown house up for sale or what to do with the triplex. And the triplex needed so much work to it to get it up to speed that it was like an easier decision just to do that. So I ended up selling the triplex to an investor, by the way. And I got a decent enough price for it, and I was happy with that. So we took that money and then put that down payment on our house, and we moved out to Delaware County, out in Media. So renting out the Fishtown house, and I guess it was just a combination of events, like with family, everything falling into place. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a pretty good position now. We're all settled in, and I'm getting the rental income for the Fishtown property. And I was telling my wife, I was like, we need to buy more properties. We definitely need to pick up some more properties. But I was so used to just looking at like the 20% down, conventional investment property concept. And I had, started talking to Aaron around about that time, and joined this group and all that stuff. So I was like hooked on Bigger Pockets podcasts, like 100, like just nonstop. I literally I stopped listening to like music altogether. Like any free time that I had was spent like addicted to learning about real estate, period.
I still do that, so it's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, welcome. You're in good company.
Yeah. I even had a buddy of mine text me earlier who's a former DC firefighter. He sent me a podcast. He's like, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Dave Knight, but I think he'd be right up your alley. I was like, oh, yeah, I talked to Dave a couple of weeks ago. He's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, man, he's a Canadian fella. He's one of our northern friends. So it's a very small ancestral pool of podcast listeners.
Yeah, I talked to that guy, Dave, about, I don't know, right around Christmas. Him and I did one of these, so eventually it'll be out. But he's somebody we should chat with one day because he's got a pretty interesting story, also.
Yeah.
So Tommy, you were in law enforcement. You kind of accidentally did a value add, as Aaron said, plus house hacked. So for those of you that aren't familiar with house hack, Tommy, how would you explain that? Because some of these terms that I know the first couple of times I heard some of this, my head spun. And for the guy that just first year on the job in Philly, on patrol, listening to this podcast, what is house hacking and how could it benefit him or her?
Yeah. So if you go find yourself, my recommendation would be probably try to find a quad and move in there if you can, because you get an FHA loan, right? Am I right, Aaron? And the percentage is extremely low that you have to put down. So the whole goal is to get into the property with as little money out of pocket as possible, if any. Yeah. So that's a great way to go.
And then on top of that, the other rentals. So if it's a 3-unit, it's a triplex. The other 2 units will help get you approved for the mortgage on the property because it goes towards your income. So if it's somebody starting out, like if you buy, it's 4 units or less. So if somebody has a 4-plex out there and they want to buy it, the other 3 units in that 4-plex will go towards the approval, towards your getting the property. And then you can house hack the property. You potentially do add value. Once you get to 5 and above, it's a little bit different though. You can start doing commercial.
But you could even do it if it was a single family house or a row home, townhouse, whatever, renting out bedrooms, maybe if you really knew the people or liked them. But
yeah, so College Park, that's spot on. College Park rents by the room. I think it's the average right now is right around $600 per room. Most college towns do this. It's a way for them to make money and live for free. So I was talking to one of my guys, his boy's going to play football at one of the colleges around here in Maryland. And he was like, how do I buy a second house that my son can live in and then rent the rooms out? And so we sat down and went over it. It's a great option for you because the cost of living will be cheaper that way rather than living on campus at a lot of the campus towns.
Yeah. So basically it's a way to live for a reduced fee or for free. So Tommy, I just wanted to kind of point that out because you mentioned that and breezed over it. And I was like, man, I wish I would have known what that was.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago.
I try to talk to the younger cops all the time about it. Like they're out there blowing their money on. There's a cop in my district that has like a $12,000 cologne collection.
Excuse me.
What?
That's a first. I've never heard that.
I'm telling you, he has. It might be higher than that now, but I think it was around about $12,000 cologne collection.
He must smell fantastic all day long, every day. Like he never doesn't smell like a Sephora.
Yeah, but the advantages of it, like I think it is part of like a mindset thing too, a little bit. You know, I think most people are just comfortable with like, I just want a nice place to live, right? But the whole idea of using that like as a vehicle to move into making your life easier in the long run, actually, is
Yeah, so let's talk about what you're doing now. Like that's a perfect lead into what you're doing now. So I know you've got the primary you live in, you've got the Fishtown property still.
yes.
You got
Is
the
Fishtown a suburb of Philly or something? Or
No, Fishtown is just a neighborhood in Philly. It's actually technically Kensington, but it's like a super like hipster appreciating area. It's a really good
Gotcha.
location. Yeah.
So then, since we've met, you tried to buy the Delaware property over in the state of Delaware, and then you bought the triplex, which you're working on now, right?
Yeah, and I should point this out too, because even when I bought the Fishtown house, like I was still dating my wife, and she was like coming along looking at houses and stuff like that, and I had intentionally picked out like basically areas that I knew were hot, and I will like just get on right on the outskirt. So it was Fishtown right there. Like if you're closer towards one section, it was just expanding slowly, and then there was Point Breeze in South Philly, which is a very high appreciating area and closer to Center City, but it's a lot rougher down there. So that was like I had like a 5-year plan, which was to eventually move out to the suburbs for the school districts for the kids and all that stuff. So it was a good move.
So so where you're at now. So when it's been 6 months since we started talking, give or take, right? So you had one house under contract. We can go over the well and septic and cesspools if you want to. Fantastic learning experience. And then
that was $1,000 lesson. That was, yeah.
All right. So here's what happened is I don't like personally investing in double yellow lined houses. So like if there's a double yellow line in front of the house, it indicates a busy state road to me. So usually it's not something that I want as a rental, just because I don't want the traffic coming and going and the house doesn't appreciate as much and whatever. But Tommy disagreed with me. And Tommy's like, no, bro, it's a great deal. I'm telling you. So he ended up putting his house under contract. And tell me what happened.
Yeah. So we put the house under contract, and there was the septic thing was right up front. Like we knew that basically the septic tank had to be replaced, but I didn't understand or know that they go by certain guidelines on what kind of tank they can put in there, and like is it the easement? I forget what the word is, but how far away essentially it has to be from like the house, or like if there's like a waterway and there's like a creek out behind the house, and different rules like that. So I hired I forget his title, I don't know, surveyor or something like that, but he went out there and he called me right away. Thank God that guy was well experienced, but he's like, yo, the first thing out of his mouth, he goes, Tom, he's like, you're not buying this house, are you?
Great start.
Yeah. So then he explained to me about the issue. So essentially, there was a cesspool out there. So there was no way to get the proper type of system in place. So, but then I had to go back with the realtor who was representing the seller, and I think she was pretty shysty, to be honest with you. But fortunately, she made an error in the agreement of sale, and that was kind of like the scapegoat. So I hammered on that, and I essentially told her I was going to turn her in.
The contract, it says like when you look at a contract, it has public water, public sewer, cesspool, what kind of well water, public water. And on hers, she had put that it was a septic system, but it was actually a cesspool. So because of that point on the contract, which is why contracts are so important, that's why you were able to get out of this contract and just lose your earnest money deposit.
Yep, just because of that one little checkbox.
Makes a world of difference. Contracts can hold your feet to the fire.
Yes, sir.
But you told him, like, they were like, we're going to sue you, and you're like, all right, see you in court, and they were like, all right, we'll reduce you out of the contract because they were in breach of contract for incorrect information.
Exactly.
So that's a good note to kind of put a pin in, is that when you read like, a lot of people don't read their contracts. They get the DocuSign, it comes to them, and they're just like, click, 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 click. And I'm like, you got to read that. Like, spend a half hour going over the information in there. Like I've seen realtors change the percentage that they're getting from 2 or 2.5% to like 3 or 6%. I'm like, oh, that's a big chunk. Like, let's go over these numbers real quick together. All right. So once you get out of the Delaware, Tyler's back. Tyler lost internet, but he's back now. So happy to have Tyler back because I could have used his input in a couple of these things. So once you left that property and you found another one, it was another add value property. It was a multi-unit, and it has a bunch of garages, one of which was hidden. And you called me like 3 weeks later and was like, hey man, I found a hidden garage in this thing. Like, tell me about that property.
Oh, it was for Bay. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting property. It came through a wholesaler, and I was kind of hesitant at first because obviously, like, I've never been involved with, a full rehab, and I wouldn't count it as a total demo, but there's definitely a good amount of work for sure. But I was focused on going over the numbers, and the crappy part is that the owner actually renewed a year lease for both current tenants. So the 4-bay garage the guy rents out for $300, and the above the garage is a 2-bedroom 1-bath apartment that he renewed at $800, and the market rent for a 2-bedroom on there is about $1,300. And I know I get more for that garage, so I kind of just decided, like, whatever, like, I'm just gonna push forward and do it and get the experience and take action. And I can count on when the lease expires in a couple months, I could just raise the rent. And then there's a single family house also on the land, and the market rent for that is going to be probably around $1,800.
So Tommy,
go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, Tommy, you mentioned a wholesaler. Can you explain what that is? Because there's some people that may not understand, like, on market versus off market properties and what exactly a wholesaler does.
Right. So wholesaling is like this weird little black market world. I think that's the best way I can describe it, right? Because kind of anybody can get into it, but essentially the wholesaler is someone who assigns the contracts. So he speaks to the homeowner, and sometimes the homeowner doesn't even know that it's assignment of contract. But this one did, because this guy was an investor himself, but the wholesaler came to an agreement that he could find a buyer for him, essentially. So I got a call from a friend, and he's like, "You want to come check this out?" And I went down to go look at it. So that's essentially what a wholesaler does. He puts the house under contract with the current owner, and then assigns the contract to the new buyer, which in this case was me.
Yeah. So just to summarize, there's houses you see on Zillow and Redfin and on market homes, so to speak, that are listed with a realtor. That's what I would say 99% of the folks listening probably think of when they think about a house for sale. Then there's off-market properties that are typically not listed on the multiple listing service. They're not going to show up typically on Zillow and Redfin and the different platforms. But there's people that have these properties under contract for, say, $100,000, right? And then they come to Tommy and they say, "Hey, I have this house. It's worth $150. I'll sell it to you for $110." So the wholesaler makes that $10,000 in the middle without actually taking ownership to the property. And you're right, it is I like how you put like a black market, because there's a super low to, I would describe it, no barrier to entry. That's why you see signs at every intersection that say, "I'll buy your house," because the most of those folks are just looking to wholesale. And in my experience, I would say about 9 out of 10 of them are not good. And every now and then you find somebody that actually knows how to run their numbers, make sure that the house is actually worth what they say it's worth. The repairs are somewhat accurate, and the repairs thing can be somewhat ambiguous because different people do different things. But so just to summarize, that's a wholesaler and the difference between on and off market properties. So you found this from a wholesaler. What are you doing with it now?
So I guess you could classify it as a burr, right? So
you did purchase it, right?
yeah, I did purchase it. So I originally was like, all right, cool. I'm excited. I got all my tools, and I'm gonna go do this entire house myself. So
So let's go over
so
some of
that,
the obstacles and you had that you overcame, because I remember you sending me pictures of like the deck and the contractors and what was going on.
yeah. So originally I thought the deck wasn't going to be a huge issue. I thought I could just sister some choice down there and fix it up, but it was a disaster, and I had multiple contractors that lined up to come out and give me bids on different items in the house, including the porch eventually. And I think maybe about I'm going to give a percentage to it. Maybe about 20% actually showed up or ever answered their phone again. And I finally got this guy out there, and I think I was leery, but um, when it came time to talk about the price of the deck and all that and the work that he was going to do, he seemed like he knew what he was talking about, right? And but then when it came time to give the contract, I think he wanted like 75% up front. I forget what the exact numbers were, the amount, but right away, like I had already talked to Aaron about stuff like this before. So I'm like, yeah, that's not really going to work for me. Like I can throw you a couple $100 for materials up front, and that's it. So day one, he started, and I'm watching him build it, and I'm like, okay, I'm no genius, but this looks like a piece of shit. And I sent some pictures to Aaron, and he very rapidly sent me the pictures back with lots of red circles around it.
Probably pointing out the quality craftsmanship. That's all.
Right.
Oh, so that was a learning experience for all of us.
It would have been better if you would have given him the 75%, though, I'm sure.
Right. So thankfully, I ended up paying a couple $100 for the guy to demo, and I had to take the shitty deck apart. And I had a buddy of mine, Steve. Steve's actually in the group too. He was super helpful, man. He came out and kind of helped walk me through some things and help me build it initially, and then I ended up finishing it off myself. But it's solid.
But you learned a ton doing it, though. Like you learn how to build a deck, you learn how to run the contractor, you learn how to pay out, not pay out. Like that was an obstacle that's like a lot of people would have spent a lot of money, and you just spent like a day or so of headache dealing with this guy. So,
yeah, I think it was good. Like I definitely tend to learn better just by experiencing things, I think. So
I would say probably most of the people in this group are more of like a hands-on do type learner, and it's one of those things. Like I know Aaron does a lot of work on his properties. I don't know if Tyler does any. I pretty much don't do any at this point, but my first one or two, like I remember laying on the floor, changing the outlets, but then I knew how to do it. So now whenever somebody shows me, I may not be an expert on electric, but I can be like, yeah, I know roughly how long it takes my dumbass. Like it should take about this long. You should be able to get about 6 of these done. But, you can start to work backwards a little bit and start to understand if you're being taken.
right.
Because I'm sure by nature from your line of work, like you're probably a little bit, you probably question a lot of people right off the bat. Like, and contractors seem to be like this weird group of people, kind of like us, but they just are actually, I think, physically incapable of answering the phone, and the ones that do can't return calls or show up on time or do what they say they're going to do. Like it's just very weird. You have to manage them very closely. And obviously you saw that right out the gate. So I can see why people choose to do their own work. I had a picture posted the other day. They're like, the only way to do it is to do it yourself, which is true. But at a certain point, like you only have so many hours in a day also, right?
You can't
So
scale.
yeah, you have to kind of start to decide what you can hire out and what you can't.
Yeah, otherwise you're prohibited from scaling.
Yeah, it's like Tyler's an ideal candidate for the scaling because he does all of his stuff long distance. So like we went over this the first episode is he got a contractor in place and like who do you like working with? Like Tyler, you want to go over that again?
Yeah, as far as my process and stuff like that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started off. I actually called. We asked our escrow officer, and then she gave us a recommendation for our first contractor, and that worked out well for the first couple. And then they saw that we were making money, so then of course their prices magically went up. And then we just did the same thing. We asked again for another referral, and we have my current contractor right now. And kind of like it's funny when I was thinking when Tommy was talking, and Mike just mentioned is. All four of us by nature, we're constantly either questioning or assessing people on a daily basis for our jobs. And I think that's one of our biggest assets that we have going right into it is we can kind of read the situation and read people and see, hey, 75% is not going to cut it. So for me, what I do, since I'm long distance and I can't see every project, is I don't pay my contractor anything up front. And the reason that is demo is usually your first line item, right? That's the first thing you're going to do on any job site. That requires no materials. All it does is it requires, hours of labor, and then we pay that out first. And that's actually protected me from losing a lot of money is usually the first 1 or 2 weeks of payments are directed solely to demo. And I get pictures and I get videos and I get signatures to confirm that. And I can't do the work myself because I'm in California and my properties are in Boise. But B, it's you're never going to be able to scale that way. And one of the first mentors I had said, "You're never going to get rich swinging a hammer," and it's true. You can do well, and you can do one project at a time, maybe two, but everybody has their limit. And for Tommy's highest and best use now, and as he's growing, it's going to be figuring out operations to scale. And that's why I just put that process in place where every week I have a meeting with my contractors virtually, I guess you could say, where we get a signature sheet, we get a sign off, and I get videos and pictures. And we just take each line item, discuss it. If it's 100% done, they get paid. If it's 99% done, they do not get paid. And then it's also setting up my time to where I'm not doing that every day. It's Fridays. Everybody knows those are sign-off days. If you don't have it done and signed off by Friday, we wait until the next Friday. At first, I was lenient and I was driving to the bank to wire money for my contractor every time they were signing off. I'm like, this is not conducive to what I want to do. So it's only Fridays now, and I do not wire money. You get a check and it'll get sent on Fridays. So there's things that you can do, Tommy, that it sounds like you're already doing. I love it because you're always taking action. You said you called Aaron, you asked him a million questions, then you figured out the next problem. And I think that's the biggest separator from people who end up doing something and do not, is they're not afraid to ask questions and they just jump in and
build the parachute on the way down.
Yeah, and then it's true. I was talking with a buddy yesterday, similar situation, and he's like, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just bought my first rental," and we discussed it. We're triaging. Hey, how much are you going to lose if that property's not occupied? $1,000 a month. Okay, can you afford $1,000 a month for a year? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's do it. Let's get this under our belt, and the experience alone is worth it, I think, in my opinion. So I love it. I love seeing it.
Well, you also got a bunch of
I probably should back up here a little bit too, because just so everybody knows, like I didn't have like a shit ton of money put aside just to do this. I think I had like at the time maybe like $5,000 in my savings account, but Aaron helped walk me through the whole process of getting a HELOC out on my primary residence.
That was a learning experience too.
Yeah, all that stuff, and then doing a cash out refi, which I'm actually still waiting for on the Fishtown property. But so that was huge, just learning that and understanding, the difference between those two things and how to use that liquid money that's just sitting in my property doing nothing to buy more cash flowing assets.
What was
Yeah, absolutely.
the one guy said the HUD one, and I remember looking it over. I don't. So it was the points that were high, or what was the high?
Oh, for the DSCR,
Whatever
the
you
first.
sent me, where I was like, "Don't use this guy," and he got upset with you because you didn't move forward with him. Was it
Yeah, he
cash
got.
out refi?
Yeah, that. So I went through. That was more like of a like a I guess like more like a hard money loan. I guess you want to call it that, right? It's based on DSCR, the debt service coverage ratio.
Those
But
are yeah.
he slid some extra points in there at the end, despite the fact that we went over all these numbers initially, and I knew better because he waited until a couple hours before closing to send me the statement. I
Wasn't it like
remember
a
that.
three? I had like 3 points that were extra or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
it? Just 3 extra points?
Yeah. So anybody who doesn't know, like a point is basically a percentage of the loan. So if it's $100,000 loan, 1% is $1,000. If it's a $300,000 loan, that 1 point is $3,000. So if you do it for a $300,000 house and there's 3 points on it, that's an extra $9,000 that he was going to pay out. And I don't remember the specifics. I just remember reading over the HUD one, and I was like, I think you can get better rates and terms.
Yeah.
But then you didn't use him, and he got pissed off at you, and you found somebody better anyways.
Right. I ended up just going conventional because the goal was to get the Fishtown property out of my name and into an LLC. But for this house alone, I'm just going conventional just so I can get more bang for my buck out of it. So.
And those DSCR loans will come into play later on. Once you've fulfilled all your Fannie stuff, they're not a bad loan. The thing is, the guy should have just disclosed it right up front. Hey, this is what I'm charging you. This is what it is. Because I'm going to start using DSCR loans more for Boise, just because it's ease of use. You qualify strictly off the property. All you need is the rent, and that's what we're using. I'm not using my own personal credit, and you can close in an LLC. But like you found out, conventional, way cheaper. But as you go on and you add more properties to your portfolio, that option is going to go away. And then the issue is finding somebody who does DSCR and that is reputable. Most likely you will have points attached with that specific product. And it's just, hey, upfront, let's have an upfront conversation. I'm sure your BS meter went through the roof as soon as he plopped that on you 15 minutes before. But they do have a good place. And I think they're an awesome loan. It's just is finding somebody that you can trust, and it'll come into play later on for sure.
So Tyler, I know we've talked about this before because I was just asking you about this. Can you break down the DSCR for either purchase or refi and the difference of it?
Yeah, so like difference between that and a conventional. So conventional, it's like Tommy's going to be using his own personal credit, his income, his employment, all those things. Think of conventional as probably most people that are listening have strictly done conventional loans on their primary residence. That's just your normal loan process. And then a DSCR loan is going to strictly be based off of the asset itself. So they'll see your credit score, but they don't even want to know anything about your employment. They don't want to know anything about your income. They just want to know what your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are. And as long as that meets a ratio of 1 or greater, then you can qualify. And with those products too, you could even go lower. If your ratio is 0.75%, they'll let you do it. They're just going to charge you more. So I don't know what your scenario was. Maybe that was the case and the broker failed to disclose that, but there are two different things. DSCR is really big. If you're looking at anything 5 units or above, any type of commercial property, that's what most commercial lenders have been doing forever. They're just applying it now to a residential product, treating the same thing. This rental property is now the asset that we are using to qualify. And the reason that is the bank looks at it. If we need to foreclose on this property, will it make sense to us? And that's the line in the sand that they've drawn, is that 1%. And like I said, some of them are even doing 0.75% right now. You're just going to pay for it in rate. And the biggest difference, like I mentioned earlier, between a conventional and this DSCR is be prepared to pay points, be prepared to have a prepayment penalty. And a prepayment penalty just is stating, let's say it's 1, 2, or let's say 3 years. If you refi or pay that loan off within 3 years, you're going to owe the lender X amount of dollars. Again, all of these are fine. And that's what you do usually for an investment property. It's how it's disclosed. Your broker or your lender should disclose it right up front. They should give you ample time to figure out whether or not you want to do it and move forward. Because if I got 3 points up front and I was able to calculate all of my numbers after that and it made sense, okay, let's do it, because I'm not putting it on my personal credit report. But if it doesn't make sense, the whole point is disclosure. And like I said, I'm a big fan of learning about both types of debt, and they both have their places.
So is it based off of the income from the projected
Correct.
income, the current income, or the appraised
The,
value?
lo- the lower of the two. So you're either going to have a rented unit, and they'll use the lower of the two, either the actual lease dollar amount or what the appraisal comes back at and shows the market rent. They'll use the lower of those two. And those are also lender specific guidelines. Some of them may only take the rent. Some of them may take only the appraisal. And then some, like I know Caliber is doing, they're starting to do that with Airbnb as well.
Tyler, are those loans require a personal guarantee, the DSCRs? I guess it probably
as far
depends
as
on
them
the
being
underwriter, right?
recourse,
Yeah.
some of them do, and some of them do not.
Yeah.
It's all investor specific.
Definitely think there would be some value in having just a financing 101 podcast with you one day.
Okay.
Because Tyler brings a ton of value when it comes to just discussing the ins and outs of the foreign language of financing to most of us. So, did we lose Tommy?
That's using
Tommy started breaking up. He started getting choppy. I'm not sure. There we
Oh,
go.
okay.
He's back now. All right, so let's get back to Tommy.
I just
So we
switched
know
to
what-
low power mode. All right, I'm out.
Uh-oh. Well, so Tommy, you got you started out your house hacking. You know, decided you're going to pick up a couple other properties. You got this new one. What is your intention moving forward with being a police officer, being a real estate investor, kind of a hybrid model of both, or what are you thinking you're going to do moving forward here?
Definitely scale.
Kind of what's the goal?
Definitely scale. So right now I have 2 virtual assistants, and I pull lists, and I'm still trying to work on KPIs and understanding that whole thing. But the cold callers, the VAs, they call. What I'm trying to locate is some kind of distressed seller situation, and they either qualify or disqualify that lead as best they can, and then I follow up with the seller, and so I'm tracking that now. I finally got a CRM only recently. I wish I had got one right from the get-go, but so there's a pipeline of about a good 80 or 90 like leads in the system. Some of them are worth following up on, some of them aren't. So I think my goal is 100%. I would love to have a self-sustaining business that I can, if me and my family want to, fly to Belize and live there for 3 months, and then we can do that. And then my business will still be operational. So
Nice.
part of that involves, I'm not really a big fan of wholesaling at all, to be honest with you, but it gives, and I don't like talking to sellers at all. Me and Tyler talked about that right when I started. I was like, I love talking to people, some people, but so where am I going with this? So it gives me the opportunity to cherry pick properties. So in the immediate, my goal is to replace my income from my W-2, so that I can legit say,
You broke up, but I think you were going to say that you want to be a firefighter.
That's what I heard.
So, you know, chase the goals of being a firefighter in the future. Is that what you said? Oh man, we're losing you. So Tommy, I know Tommy fairly well. So getting to know him for the last while. I know he's been doing trying to get into wholesaling, seeing if his that's a strength for him. He's trying to get the renovations done. He's trying to hire stuff out.
Can you guys hear me or no?
Yeah,
You're back. Yeah, you cut out right after you said you wanted to be a firefighter.
I think I lost you guys. I can't hear anything.
Oh, perfect.
That's what happens when you move your car. So Tommy had to move his car when we first started because he had some of the locals eyeing his car. So he had to move it to a different spot just in case that they wanted to test his wheels out on their vehicles while he was inside working on something. So I think he lost his connection because of that.
They were just pointing out he had a low tire.
Yeah, they're going to change it for him.
Yeah, now he's muted. But I think, like he was mentioning, wholesaling. It's funny because, like Mike said, that's the lowest barrier to entry, but that gives you so many skills that will serve you once you find
100%.
what you like doing. It's like, okay, I don't like wholesaling, but I like doing this. Well, I can get the deals by wholesaling as a necessary evil, and that's what's going to fill your funnel up. Because after a while, I think the whole allure of talking to sellers on a daily basis it goes away.
Oh yeah, real quick. And I'm sure most of the police officers, for the most part, when people call to see or call for help, like they're typically, not always, typically okay with the fire department. Very rarely are they happy to see the police.
Yes.
Sometimes, but rarely. So you're just kind of taking that verbal peppering all the time. And I think wholesaling is very similar because, yeah, every now and then, like you actually can provide a legitimate service to help somebody. But he just said he had 70 to 90 leads in his pipeline. There's probably 2 to 3 deals in there. The other ones are going to tell you to pound sand, do this, do that. They're typically not going to be very nice. But, it's kind of just like sifting or panning for gold. Like you have to put a lot of dirt through that sifter to get a piece of gold out the bottom. And what I find is most people, they're really gung ho about it for about 2 to 3 months, but it takes a little while to get through all that dirt. And they usually lose steam in between there. So wholesaling, I don't think is fun. And frankly, there's people that have done a great job building a scalable wholesaling model that is either local, regional, or nationwide. For me, we've kept it local. And frankly, I agree with them. Like I don't really enjoy it, but like you said, it gives you the foundation to be able to evaluate a deal, to start to just understand how you can monetize that lead. Hey, this doesn't make sense as a rental, and that's what I'm looking for right now, but this would be a great flip, or it'd be a great Airbnb, or it'd be a great owner occupied, whatever. It makes you start to look at things through different lenses. But if you know how to evaluate a property effectively for wholesaling, because that's where you're going to get it at the bottom dollar. Everything else that you do, whether it be subject to or cash purchase or whatever, it's very easy to just stack on top of wholesaling. So,
I don't think Tommy's coming back. I think he lost service. So,
Okay.
one of the things that we talked about earlier also was wholesaling, like how to close a deal. So I talked to my friend who owns his name's Wet Hutton. He owns Hutton and Pat Title in Rockville, Maryland, just north of DC. And I was recommending another friend of mine in the fire department to him to do double closings. And it seems like a lot of people don't realize, like, if you do a wholesale, if I am the wholesaler, I'm basically the middleman. I get the finder's fee to sell the property onto somebody else, sell the contract to somebody else. So there's 2 ways to do it: is either itemize in the list breakdown of the contract, it shows what my finder's fee or what my wholesale fee would be, and that's disclosed to the buyer and the seller. And then, or you can do private money and close it in your name, and then turn around and sell that same contract to somebody else, or sell the property to somebody else. The problem with that, though, is that you pay recordation taxes, or recordation and taxes, or I'm sorry, not taxes, just recordation fees twice to go that way. So if you are looking at wholesaling, make sure you know all the ins and the outs, and you either have private money or you're willing to let the buyer and seller know that you're basically a middleman with the wholesale fee or finder's fee.
Yeah, one of the things I found, and this is how I personally got started wholesaling, was I found somebody in my local market that I found trustworthy and seemed like they knew what they were doing, and I just partnered up with them for the first couple of deals to make sure I understood what I was doing, did it right. I had a pretty good idea, but what I see, and I'm all about the take action and figure stuff out, but sometimes some of these wholesalers that want to get started, they end up burning the bridge before they ever really started getting across it. So, and what I mean by that is they go out and they make a bad name for themselves by locking up a property that they should have paid 100. They have it under contract for 150. And then when they can't sell it, they leave a bunch of people high and dry. So I think it's important, like Aaron said, to understand what the rules and regulations are, which frankly are fairly loose in most states regarding that. But you can make a decent amount of money doing it, but there's a right way and a wrong way, I think, to do it. So we can talk about wholesaling on a whole episode, I'm sure, one day, because I get a lot of questions about that. I don't know if you two do, but I'm currently helping a guy that I know. He's kind of going through the whole process. He hasn't got the 2 VAs and the cold caller yet, but that's a whole nother ball game there. But I think a lot of people have some allure to it, like, because they see, oh, I can go make 20, 30 grand in a pop. And it's like, yeah, there's more to it than that. So maybe one day we can dive into that.
That'll be a good
Well,
future.
here comes Tommy, just popped back up here. Let's see if we can get him, and maybe we'll
Wrap this up.
kind of wrap it up for him. And Tommy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Just can't see you.
First time caller, long time listener.
I got my video off and maybe about 5 minutes of juice left in this thing. So
All right. Go ahead, Aaron.
So I'm going to wrap a couple things up with a final question. Like, where do you see yourself in the near future, and what's your plans, like your 2-5-year plan to move forward?
essentially the goal is in the short term to acquire Airbnbs, concentrating in Florida and Atlanta right now. And that is the short-term goal. The long-term goal is to eventually get in a large multi.
Absolutely. So, all right. So if you could give yourself, your past self, some advice, what would it be?
Past self, don't stop at house hacking. Learn as many things as you can. Ask a crap ton of questions and just take action.
All right. So other than these things, is there anything that you want to learn from us or the group to put out in the universe that you want help with, or you need some insight into?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to be coming up, and my duplex, if you want to call it that, property in Delaware is almost wrapped up. So I got a tenant already lined up, and for the single family section there. So I got to figure out what the game plan is on the Dscr cash out refund, and what the highest I can get for that is.
So one of the things I like about the DSCR versus commercial is DSCR is usually a fixed, like I guess 25 or 30 year, whereas a commercial loan is going to be like a 15-year arm, but on like a 20 or 25-year schedule. So you're paying like it's on a 25-year, but you have a balloon payment at the 15-year mark or whatever your structure is. But the DSCR is just a straight like 25 or 30 years. So it's a different product with a different set of rules. That'd be
The 40-year coming out too.
even better. Increase
Crazy.
that cash flow.
Crazy. Well,
All right, Tommy, do you want to leave us with some contact information? Do you want guys to reach out to you? Do you want to be internet famous?
is that a
The
no?
police officer in him is saying no right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't change. Don't do it. All right, I think we might have lost Tommy again. But if you guys have joined the group, First Responders Financial Freedom, Tommy's on there. He's actually a very, very friendly, good-hearted person that wants to see himself succeed and is willing to take the strides to do it, which a lot of people are not. I think all of us are very much a lead the horse to water, but we can't make you drink kind of mindset. So if we can help each other out, whether it be experience like Mike and Tyler or starting out like Tommy, then this is a good good arena to be in.
Yeah. So, well, Tommy, thanks for. I know you're not on here anymore, but thanks for being our first guest, and we appreciate it. So hopefully we can do a follow-up episode where he has a full battery, and maybe get him to answer a few more questions about his journey from, I guess, police car to rental properties. So, well, guys, I guess this is episode number 2. Hopefully they get better from here, right? we'll see.
Only
This
on
time
the way up.
we hit
That's what
record
happens when
this
we interview
time.
a cop first.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all for this one, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. See ya.